Hi there, this is Jackson, and this is the debut video of my channel on YouTube, Bookstack with Jack. And basically the reason I created this channel was just to talk about books, about fiction, about literature, or lit, as some people call it, if that's a more like kind of a, I don't know, more cool way of saying it. But anyways, like, I think aside from a few Star Wars novels I'd read in the past 5 years or so, or nearly 6 years now, I haven't really read anything in serious fiction for quite a long time until last year when I did get back into reading fiction, when I read Philip Myers' The Sun, which is an incredible novel. And then that was around spring of 2020, or 2021, I should say. And ever since, I've read 7 novels, and basically the objective is, with each year, to read around, since I read 7 novels in 2021, I'd like to read maybe 9 or 10 this year. Since I have a little bit more of an early start, I started reading fiction again last spring. And since we're in the new year, it just seems like a good idea to have a few picks, or more than a few picks, I should say. And with that, I guess I should probably show you what I'm going to read, or try to read, for Bookstack with Jack, or read together. This is all really new to me, YouTubing and all that, so probably these are the 9, or I should say 10 novels I'd like to read this year for my channel, Bookstack with Jack. So, welcome to Bookstack with Jack. Here we go. First one is The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois, and this is by Honoré Fanon Jeffers. This was an Oprah's book club pick earlier at the closing of 2021. And it is, let's read a brief thing from the jacket in here. The 2020 National Book Award long-listed poet makes her fiction debut with this magisterial epic, an intimate yet sweeping novel with all the luminescence and force of Homegoing and Sing, Unburied Sing, and The Water Dancer, that chronicles the journey of one American family from the centuries of the colonial slave trade through the Civil War to our own tumultuous era. And the reason I was really interested in this is because, one, I have a personal stake in these, well, not stake, that's the wrong way of phrasing it. I have a personal connection to these kinds of stories. One, the demographic and cultural scene in our country is changing, and in many ways my personal life is emblematic of that. My significant other, my lover, my partner, is Black, and I just love her to pieces. And I think, aside from history books, sometimes fiction can be the greatest window into the African American experience, and particularly in American literature, even though it's underlooked at, there's a rich history of African American authors writing these big epic stories about the Black experience, about Black families, about Black individuals in our country's history, in our nation's history. One of the most famous novels is probably Roots, by Alex Haley, which I do own. And this has been called the Roots for our generation, which is certainly interesting. And it's the longest. That's sort of the idea behind the list. Bookstack with Jack. It's from longest to shortest. And this is the longest novel that I want to read this year. And it clocks in about, it's not clocks in, I'm not talking about movie runtimes. It runs at about 797 pages, so nearly 800 pages, which should be intimidating, but I Know This Much Is True, which is 900 pages, thereabouts, and then I also read Shadow Country, this other novel that's about there as well. So I've read some pretty big door stoppers already. So, yeah, really want to get to this. My lady owns this as well, and we've thought of like we thought of when we decide to read it, start reading it at the same time and see which one of us can beat the other in reading it. My money is on my lady because she can read really fast. A lot of her reading skills put mine to shame, but you never know. And then we have The Hour I First Believed by Wally Lamb, which is, let's see this thing, 740 pages. And this is like, I was just enraptured by I Know This Much Is True, which was also an Oprah's Book Club pick back in the late 90s. And that was just remarkable. I saw the mini-series too with Mark Ruffalo, which was good, but it couldn't do justice to the full length of the novel. Just the sweep of it. And this is, again, it takes something like the Columbine shooting, which is central to this novel, and makes like an epic out of it about how like we can become swept up in these tiny little episodes in history, but nonetheless are pretty like shattering, and how our own personal experiences can be exacerbated by, or yeah, that's a good word for it, by these episodes in history, and how they really can shape and, I guess you could say, just like almost become emblematic of the personal struggles. And this was a mass shooting, the Columbine shooting, but it becomes a catalyst for a lot of trauma and self-destruction in the lives of the characters in this novel. Something you wouldn't normally think, befits a sweeping epic novel, but it manages to sort of capture, or it aims to capture the American experience, the American condition, just like how I Know This Much Is True was very much doing that. So in that way, it's really interesting for me, and I've endeavored to try and at least read one Wally Lamb novel each year. So looking forward to getting to this at some point. And then we have another doorstopper here, a hefty tome, A Book of American Martyrs by Joyce Carol Oates. And this is, again, it takes the topic of abortion, which, again, you wouldn't think could befit a novel that's sweeping and large, but it manages to do so. I'll read the description on the flap here. In this striking, enormously affecting novel, Joyce Carol Oates tells the story of two very different and yet intimately linked American families. Luther Dunphy is a zealous evangelical who envisions himself as acting out God's will when he assassinates an abortion provider in a small Ohio town, while Augustus Voorhees, the idealistic but self-regarding doctor who is killed, leaves behind a wife and children scarred and embittered by grief. In her moving, keenly observed portrait, Joyce Carol Oates fully inhabits the perspectives of two interwoven families whose destinies are defined by their warring convictions, and squarely, but with great empathy, confronts an intractable, abiding rift in American society. Wow. That's a lot, but that is fascinating. especially considering abortion, especially with what's going on, what happened and what is happening in Texas. The topic of abortion is especially prescient and important right now in American society. It's something I myself have mixed feelings about. And just the idea of taking something like that and fashioning this big, epic narrative out of it. You should probably notice by now that I really do love epics, big novels, big stories, and that extends to cinema as well. I love big stories, big but intimate. That's important because if you let the size of the story dwarf the characters and the themes, then it just becomes, I don't know, like kind of like a pretty panorama, nice to look at, but what's really there. So yeah, and this runs at about, let's see, 736 pages. So yeah, definitely gonna read this, try to, at least this year. And then this one I got for my birthday, Dune by Frank Herbert. And, I saw the movie. What else can I say, about it? It's so different, but so great. And, but there were certain things when I was watching the film that I didn't quite understand. And in many ways, reading this would help add a bit of context and maybe enrich my subsequent viewing experiences when I get to watch the film again, or when I have the time to. And then also see what all the hype is about with the novel, because this is considered one of the greatest sci-fi novel of all time, which is that's a pretty great reputation to have. And this inspired Star Wars too, folks. This inspired Star Wars, which that's really good to keep in mind. And yeah, and it's really cool. It's got beautiful cover art, and then the papers, the edges, I should say, are colored blue, sort of like this, kind of like the blue of the eyes of the Fremen in the universe of Dune. So yeah, definitely really want to get to this at some point. And this, I should say, it's 658 pages, but a lot of that, maybe 50 pages or so, is occupied by a lot of notes that were provided by Brian Herbert, Frank Herbert's son. So the actual length of the novel, let's see, 603 pages. So yeah, Dune. Can't wait to get to that. And then we have John Steinbeck's East of Eden, which is, it's kind of a period, kind of a 20th century retelling of the Book of Genesis, mixed in with other elements from the Bible. And I got this in 2020. I wasn't back on my fiction kick yet, but I really liked the cover, and it sounded interesting to me. And I think it's really cool when you can use myth or religious texts to inform kind of like stories that you want to have sort of like when you kind of want to ground it in sort of like a mythical aura and mythical standing. Like it has that sort of universality that you like about a good story, but then it has sort of this grandeur of that. And it's a family saga. Again, it's another epic. And John Steinbeck considered this his finest work. and a lot of people do kind of consider this novel Steinbeck's opus. I think even Steinbeck himself considered it his finest work. And this thing is, let's see, 601 pages. So yeah. Yeah, East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And then we have The Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy, which really interests me because it's very similar to I Know This Much Is True. In fact, I think I Know This Much of... tripping over my words. It's been a long week. I think I Know This Much Is True was probably really inspired by The Prince of Tides because it deals with similar themes. Mental health, trauma, abuse, all played out on this large canvas of American history that sort of becomes like a metaphor for these like domestic traits or qualities or elements of the American character and how the American landscape, the American culture can define or inform those aspects of those private moments in American life that take place among American families. So, yeah, really want to get to this at some point this year. And this thing, again, I almost said clocked in. It's not a movie. This thing runs at about, let's see, 567 pages. So yeah, Pat Conroy's The Prince of Tides. And then we've got Barbara Kingsolver's The Poisonwood Bible, which is super interesting because it's narrated in the first person by multiple characters who are all related, a mother and her daughters, and it's set in the Belgian Congo in the 50s, and more than that, it goes beyond that, and it's about this American missionary family who comes from the South, who go there with the gospel, spreading the gospel in mind, but find themselves changed by the country over many decades. This was an Oprah's Book Club pick in the late 90s as well, and I think, one, I just love the cover. I mean, that's really cool looking. And also, I love first-person narration. It doesn't give as much detail, environmental detail. That's something, third-person narration can give better descriptions of the setting of a book, the places, and all that. But first-person narration can be a fascinating way to sort of get unreliable perspectives, but then also gain a window into the thoughts and feelings and personality and psyche of the characters who are speaking. And that's really cool, and it adds a layer of, it just makes it more interesting, in my opinion. It's harder to do because you gotta find that character's voice, and not every person's voice sounds the same, logically, but that's a worthy challenge in and itself, and many authors pull it off. And considering this is taught and used in a lot of English classes in our country, I would say Barbara Kingsolver must have done something right. So yeah, really want to get to this at some point. And this thing is... How long is this thing? 546 pages. So yeah. Get another gander at that. Yep. And then we have In the Fall by Jeffrey Lent. And found this at a local thrift store in Davis. In the Fall is an extraordinary epic of 3 generations of an American family, the dark secrets that blister at its core, and the transcendent bonds between men and women that fuel their lives over the course of 6 decades. Yeah, So again, it's another epic. I hope I said the author. That's by Jeffrey Lent. And what drew me to this book was what starts this generational family saga is this really sweet, purportedly sweet love story between this Union soldier and escaped slave from the South. And he, his name's Norman Pelham, and the escaped slave woman is Leah. They start a family, and yeah, so I just thought there was something cool about that. You know, again, like I've mentioned before, earlier in the video, I'm in a relationship with a black woman, and it's nice to see a book that depicts an interethnic, interracial coupling with care and dignity and depth and all that, and that's something I really look forward to seeing how that kind of unfolds in this book. So yeah, that's In the Fall by Jeffrey Lent, and this thing is, let's see, 542 pages. So yeah. And then we have, this is another Oprah's Book Club pick, Fall on Your Knees by Anne Marie MacDonald. And this is, it's certainly interesting. You know, it goes from Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, through the battlefields of World War I to the emerging jazz scene in New York City. It's about, it's just, I'm losing words now. I'm just tired, guys. It just looked really interesting to me. Okay, here's the thing on the back, because I was looking for the description and the dust jacket on the inside, but I wanted to find something more general. The Piper family, it's on the back. The Piper family is steeped in secrets, lies, and unspoken truths. At the eye of the storm is one secret that threatens to shake their lives, even destroy them. Set on stormy Cape Breton Island off Nova Scotia, Fall on Your Knees is an internationally acclaimed multi-generational saga that chronicles the lives of 4 unforgettable sisters. Theirs is a world filled with driving ambition, inescapable familial bonds, and forbidden love. Compellingly written, by turns menacingly dark and hilariously funny, this is an epic tale of 5 generations of sin, guilt, and redemption. So yeah, that sounds like a really interesting story. Glad I was able to find this specific edition, because this specific hardcover was a pain. Mute the rest in the butt to find. So yeah, and this thing runs at about, let's see, 508 pages. So yeah. Then we have the shortest and final novel, and I got this recently, Crossers by Philip Caputo, or Caputo, I don't know. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but if I am, I guess I'll find out. And this is sort of similar to Philip Meyer's The Sun, which really piqued my interest because I love The Sun. And yeah, so again, these are all kind of big canvas stories that deal with different aspects of the human condition, the American condition. So intimate stories told on a big canvas. So yeah, that just sounds really interesting to me. Anyways, yeah, and this thing is, let's see, .448 pages. So yeah. Thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe. Don't forget to ring the bell. Oh, well, anyways, like, subscribe, comment, whatever, just do it, please, And thank you for watching the video. I'm really excited to see if I can upload more. Thank you.